I was sitting in a small cafe in Brooklyn last Tuesday, watching a guy at the next table interact with one of those new frictionless payment kiosks. He was telling his friend how much he loved the new New York privacy bill that just passed, the one supposedly restricting AI targeting. He was genuinely relaxed, even smug about it. "It's about time," he said. "I'm sick of being a product." He actually used the phrase "taking back my sovereignty" while the kiosk scanned his palm to authorize a $4 latte. To him, the green light on that scanner was a sign of safety. He felt that because the law now managed his data, he was finally off the hook. He looked at his phone, which had just authenticated his identity via quick iris scan, with a sense of deep-down satisfaction. He believed the interface was protecting him, acting as a digital shield against the chaos of the internet. But then something weird happened. A digital billboard across the street flickered and the ad changed. It didn't show a generic car or movie trailer. It showed a specific type of hiking boot, the exact pair he'd been staring at in a shop window 3 blocks back without ever checking his phone or saying a word out loud. His expression shifted instantly from smugness to a kind of quiet, localized horror. The protection he was so excited about didn't stop the billboard from reading the microfluctuations in his pulse or the specific way his pupils dilated when he walked past that shop window. That sudden collapse of his confidence, the realization that the law wasn't a shield, but a formal contract for his biological extraction, left the whole table silent. He thought he was being protected from the machine, but in reality, the machine had just moved inside him. It wasn't just predicting his choices anymore, it was manufacturing his impulses before he even felt them. It makes you wonder, if the law says your body is protected, why does it feel like your very nervous system has become the final digital mine? That story. It honestly kept me up last night. It's that specific look on his face. You know that look?
I do.
It's the realization that the thing you thought was a wall, the interface, the screen, the privacy law, is actually a door.
And it's wide open.
And you didn't just forget to lock it. You couldn't lock it. The lock was never real.
It is a profound moment of disillusionment. What you witnessed in that cafe is the collapse of the digital dualism fallacy. The idea that there is an online world and an offline world, and that we can somehow step between them.
Right.
That distinction is gone. The interface has dissolved. It's not in your phone anymore. It's in the world. It's in the billboard.
And that's exactly where we need to start this deep dive. We aren't just talking about a new payment method or, a tweak to the privacy settings on our phones. We are talking about a fundamental restructuring of how power works.
A whole new architecture of control.
Yes. I've been looking at the stack of sources we have for today. The 2026 legislative analysis, the academic papers on techno-feudalism by Varoufakis and Durand, the cognitive resilience frameworks, and the common thread is terrifying. We seem to be moving from an era where companies wanted our attention to an era where they are claiming our biology as rent.
Rent is the operative word here. It's not profit, it's rent. And that's a critical distinction. We are witnessing a shift that is economic, biological, and you could even argue metaphysical.
So that's the mission for today.
That's the mission. We need to parse through the New York Privacy Bill of 2026, not just as a legal text, but as a symptom of this new techno-feudalism. Then we need to understand the mechanism of the reptilian hijack, how that billboard actually worked on a neurological level.
How it manufactured an impulse.
Exactly. And finally, we need to look at resistance, specifically this concept of tactical Luddism.
Okay, let's start with the economics, because techno-feudalism is a heavy term. I see it thrown around on Twitter and in these academic papers, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't techno-feudalism just a dramatic academic way of saying monopoly?
That's a fair question.
We have big tech companies, they have a lot of power. We've seen this before with Standard Oil or the railroads. Why do we need to drag the Middle Ages into 2026? It feels a bit hyperbolic.
It sounds hyperbolic, I grant you that. But the distinction is crucial, and it comes down to that difference you just mentioned. The one between profit and rent.
Okay.
Think about traditional capitalism the way we learned it in school. It's driven by two things, profit and competition. You make a chair, I make a chair. We go to the market.
Right. May the best chair win.
If my chair is better or cheaper, I sell more, I make a profit. That profit is the reward for production and innovation. That's the whole idea.
Right. Survival of the fittest widget. The market decides who wins based on who makes the best stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what economists like Yanis Varoufakis and Cedric Durand argue is that this system, capitalism, is effectively dead. It's been replaced.
Replaced by what?
By a system where the driving force isn't profit from making things, it's rent from owning the space where things happen.
Okay, explain that.
The big tech companies, Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta, they aren't just the biggest shops in the town square anymore.
They're not just another competitor.
No, they are the town square. They own the roads leading to the square. They own the pavement. They might even own the air you breathe while you're shopping. They own the platform.
Okay, let me try to ground this. So if I'm selling those hiking boots from the intro story, I'm not just competing with other boot makers.
No, you are what the sources would call a vassal. To sell those boots, you have to list them on Amazon or advertise them on Meta. You have to pay the platform fees, the ad spend, the transaction cut.
You're paying tribute.
You are paying a tribute to the cloud lord just for the privilege of accessing the market. The Lord doesn't care if your boots are better than the next guy's, as long as both of you are paying rent to be on the platform.
So the platform isn't a competitor, it's the fiefdom.
It is the fiefdom. The game is no longer about making a better product. The game is about owning the environment where products are exchanged.
That shifts the power dynamic completely. It means the cloud capitalists, as they're called, they don't really need to innovate anymore in the traditional sense.
Why would they?
They just need to build higher walls so nobody can leave, make the platform stickier.
Precisely. And this is where it gets dark for the user. If the companies are the lords and the smaller businesses are the vassals, what does that make us?
The people scrolling, the people buying the lattes with our palms.
We are the serfs. Or, to use the German theoretical term that pops up in the sources, the Cloudleibeigen, cloud serfs.
Cloud serfs.
In historical feudalism, serfs worked the land. They didn't own the land, but they were allowed to live there in exchange for giving up a portion of their harvest. They worked for free to maintain the lord's estate.
And in the digital version, our data is the harvest.
Correct. Every time you post a photo, write a review, click a link, or even just walk past that billboard with an elevated heart rate, you are doing work. You are generating information that has value.
You're a capital creation machine.
You are, but you aren't paid for it. In fact, you often pay for the privilege of doing it via subscriptions and the cost of your devices. We are tilling the digital soil, creating massive value for the words, and in return, we get
what?
Connection. Convenience.
We get to live on the land. We get to exist in the digital society.
And if you leave the platform, you're basically exiled.
And in feudal times, exile was a death sentence. Today, social death is the equivalent. Try functioning in 2026 without a smartphone, without a digital ID, without a social graph. It's becoming almost impossible. This connects directly to that Reddit thread we pulled from Isarosophy, the one about subscription slaves. There was this really intense debate about autonomy. And one user pointed out that the structure of subscription models, where you own nothing, not your music, not your software, not even the heated seats in your car, is designed to turn us into perpetual tenants of our own lives.
That thread hit on a key psychological element, the illusion of choice. We feel like we're choosing our subscriptions, choosing our platforms.
But are we?
Well, one comment really stuck with me. The best slave is the one who doesn't realize they are in chains. Because the interface is shiny, because it feels frictionless, we don't feel the extraction happening.
Right.
We feel like customers, but structurally, we are livestock. We are being farmed for behavioral data.
Which brings us squarely to the legislation. Because the guy in the cafe, he wasn't stupid. He was informed. He knew about the New York privacy bill. He thought, great, the government is stepping in. They are regulating this.
He felt protected.
He felt protected. But clearly, based on what happened with the billboard, the regulation didn't work the way he thought it would.
Well, it's not that the regulation didn't work. It's that the regulation isn't designed to stop the extraction. It's designed to manage it, to formalize it.
I want to look at a specific case study here because we have the theory, but we need to see the reality. I spent some time digging into the biometric enclosures source text, and I found the story of a man named Elias.
This is the designer in Queens.
Yeah, Elias. He's a freelance graphic designer, lives in one of those new high-rises in Long Island City. Since the 2026 bill passed, his building management updated their security systems to be compliant.
Ah, compliant.
Right. And compliance, in this case, meant mandatory biometric integration. So Elias's day is a series of what he calls biological handshakes. He wakes up, scans his retina to unlock his phone. He scans his palm to get into the gym in his building. He uses facial recognition to buy his bagel at the cafe downstairs. He scans again to get into his office co-working space.
It sounds seamless. No keys, no wallets. The promise of frictionless living.
It is seamless until it isn't. Elias described it as paying a living tax. He said, I have to pay with a piece of my body just to move through a door. And then last week, it went wrong.
What happened?
He was working on a project that involved researching some controversial political art. Nothing illegal, just, edgy stuff for a client. But the AI marketing audit, which runs in the background of his internet service provider, flagged his behavioral risk score as elevated.
And because of the centralized data sharing allowed by the very privacy bill that's supposed to protect him.
Exactly. The flag propagated. When he went home that night, the scanner at his apartment lobby turned red. Access denied. Risk assessment pending.
Wow.
He was locked out of his own home for 3 hours because an algorithm decided his search history made him a security liability. He was standing on the sidewalk arguing with a piece of glass, realizing that he doesn't actually have a right to his apartment. He has a lease that is contingent on his digital good behavior.
This is a perfect, terrifying example of the biometric tax. The source material analyzes this specific bill and calls it a Baudrillardian hyperreality.
Okay, you have to pause there. Baudrillardian hyperreality. That is a $10 phrase. Were we talking about the Matrix here? What does that actually mean in the context of a privacy law?
It's a dense concept, but think of it like a map. Baudrillard argued that in our society, the map has become more important than the territory. Eventually, the map replaces the territory. A hyperreality is a simulation that feels more real than reality itself.
So the law is the simulation, the map.
The law simulates privacy. The bill is titled the Privacy Protection Act. It has all the language of safety. It creates a feeling, a deep-down satisfaction like the guy in the cafe had, that privacy is being taken care of.
But it's not.
But in reality, what the law does is create a framework for legalized extraction. By regulating how companies can store your retina scan, the law implicitly agrees that they can have your retina scan. It transforms your biology from a private, inviolable fact into a regulated commercial asset.
I see. It's like if someone stole your car and the government passed a law saying, okay, car thieves must wash the car once a week. It sounds like a regulation on thieves, but it's actually legitimizing the theft.
That is a brilliant analogy. The law legitimizes the theft of your biometric data by wrapping it in bureaucratic procedure. Elias thought he was protected by the law, but the law is actually the contract that allows the building to process his face. It codifies the extraction. It turns the biometric tax into a legal obligation.
And this leads to the concept of the digital ID. The sources mention that as we move toward these immutable biometrics, things you can't change, like your facial geometry, your gait, we are effectively ending the concept of anonymity.
We're ending the possibility of being a stranger.
Right.
In the old world, you could walk into a shop, buy a newspaper with cash, and leave. You were a ghost. The shopkeeper didn't know you. The system didn't track you.
You were illegible.
You were illegible. Now, with facial geometry as the access token for the internet and the physical world, you are a trackable subject 100% of the time.
This connects to a really weird concept in the notes. The dead internet echo. I always thought dead internet theory was the idea that most internet traffic is bots talking to bots. But the sources are flipping it. They're saying we are becoming the bots.
It's a psychological shift. Think about Elias again. After he got locked out, how do you think he behaved the next day?
He probably walked on eggshells, self-censored his searches, tried to act normal, predictable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To pass the verification checks, to keep the green light on the scanner, Elias has to act in a way that the algorithm recognizes as safe and human. He has to align his behavior with the standard human model that the AI expects.
He has to become predictable. He has to be legible.
Yes.
So in striving to prove we aren't NPCs, non-player characters, we're forced to act exactly like NPCs. We strip away our weirdness, our spontaneity, our risk, just to ensure the door opens.
Correct. We perform a caricature of humanity to satisfy the machine. That is, the dead internet echo. The chaos of being human is flattened into a data set that the feudal lord can read and rent. We hollow ourselves out to fit into the template.
That is incredibly bleak. It's not just surveillance, it's shaping, it's terraforming the human personality. And that pivots us to the biological mechanism of how this shaping happens, because the billboard in the intro, it didn't just identify the guy, it read his pulse. It knew his physiological state.
This is where we have to bring in Shoshana Zuboff's work on surveillance capitalism. It's the foundational text for this. We are moving from monitoring location where you are to monitoring the nervous system, how you feel.
Zuboff talks about behavioral surplus. Let's break that down because it sounds like economic jargon, but it's actually about our bodies.
It is. Think of behavioral surplus as data exhaust. Let's say you search for hiking boots. You're giving the company the data it needs to provide the service, the search query. That's the deal. You ask, they answer.
Okay, fair exchange.
But the way you type, Did you hesitate before clicking? Did you scroll past the cheaper option quickly? Is your battery low? Are you walking or sitting? All of that is extra. That is the surplus.
And in the old days, maybe that data was just noise. They threw it away.
Right. But now, that surplus is the most valuable commodity on Earth. They refine it. They process it into what Zuoff calls prediction products. And these products are sold in behavioral futures markets.
Behavioral futures markets. That sounds like Wall Street for human souls.
It is exactly that. Companies are betting on your future behavior. They aren't just selling you shoes, they are selling the certainty that you will buy the shoes. They are selling the risk reduction to advertisers. We guarantee this user will convert because we know his pulse is elevated and he just looked at the window.
But it goes deeper than prediction now. Prediction implies they're just watching. What we saw with the billboard and what we're seeing in the cognitive resilience diagnostic CRD framework is that they are moving from predicting the future to manufacturing it.
And that's a quantum leap.
I want to share another story from their Research Stack Story 2 that illustrates this terrifyingly well.
This is a story about Maya in Times Square.
Yes. So Maya is walking through Times Square. It's 2026, so the square is lined with these new empathy bypass billboards. Maya is on a strict health protocol, no sugar, low caffeine. She's been doing great for 3 weeks. She's feeling strong.
So logically, her neocortex is fully in charge. She has executive function.
She thinks she does, or so she thinks. She's walking past a billboard and she isn't even looking at it. But the billboard is looking at her. It's using high-resolution thermal imaging to read the blood flow in her face. It detects microfluctuations in her pupil dilation. It cross-references this with her gait analysis. She's walking slightly slower than her baseline.
Wow.
The system calculates she's experiencing a mid-afternoon cortisol dip. She is biologically fatigued. Her defenses are down.
Her willpower is low.
Exactly. And the system knows this before she does. Suddenly, her phone buzzes. It's not a generic ad. It's a notification for a high-sugar, high-caffeine energy drink, and it's accompanied by a specific sound frequency that triggers an alertness response.
It's a multisensory attack.
It is. Maya described the sensation in an interview. She said it didn't feel like a choice. She said it felt like something reached behind my eyes and pulled a lever. Before she could even think I'm on a diet, she was walking toward the kiosk. Her hand was moving before her brain authorized it.
Something reached behind her eyes and pulled a lever. That is a chillingly accurate description of a reptilian hijack. To understand this, we need to look at the triple brain model from the CRD framework. You have 3 main layers.
Okay, lay them out.
At the top, you have the neocortex. That's Maya's rational brain. It's the part that says, I am on a diet. Sugar is bad for me. It deals with logic, future planning, and identity.
The long-term brain.
The long-term brain. Below that, you have the limbic system emotions, social validation, dopamine loops. And at the bottom, the oldest part is the reptilian brain, or the basal ganglia. This controls survival, instinct, fight or flight, and impulse.
The lizard brain, the part that sees food and says eat, sees danger and says run in.
Exactly. And the techno-feudal machinery has learned that the neocortex is too slow and too critical. It asks questions. It says no. So the algorithms are designed to bypass the neocortex entirely.
Just go around it.
The sensors detected Maya's fatigue, a biological state. The algorithm knows that in that state, the reptilian brain is screaming for energy. It timed the notification to the exact millisecond of her cortisol spike. It spoke directly to the lizard.
So the AI isn't debating her logic. It's not trying to convince her rational mind. It's hacking her nervous system.
Yes.
Yes.
It creates a short circuit. By the time her neocortex woke up and said, wait, we don't drink soda, the purchase was already made. The dopamine loop had already fired.
Yeah.
This isn't predictive programming. It is impulse manufacturing.
They didn't predict she wanted a drink. They made her want it.
They manufacture the desire itself.
And if this happens 50 times a day, if every interaction is a bypass of your rational mind,
Then you suffer cognitive erosion. The CRD framework warns about this. If you never use your willpower because the machine anticipates and manufactures your needs, your ability to say no atrophies.
it's like a muscle.
It's exactly like a muscle.
Yeah.
You lose cognitive sovereignty.
Yeah.
You lose the persistence of identity under load. You become fluid. You become whatever the algorithm needs you to be in that moment to generate a sale.
It's like if you're in a wheelchair for 3 years, your legs stop working. If you're in an algorithmic wheelchair for 3 years, your will stops working.
That is the danger. We are outsourcing our executive function to a machine that has a fiduciary duty to exploit us.
This brings us to a really deep, almost spiritual question that kept popping up in the Reddit threads we analyzed. What is on the other side of that screen? We talk about the algorithm like it's a person or a god. But what is it? Is it conscious? Is it evil? Or is it just math?
We found a fascinating discussion on the artificial intelligence subreddit about a concept called lexaplasma.
I love that word, lexaplasma. It sounds like Ghostbusters ectoplasm, but for words.
It's a compelling metaphor. The argument in the source is that large language models and these predictive AIs are not conscious people. They aren't ghosts in the machine, but they also aren't just toasters. You can't just call them tools.
They're a third category of thing.
They are a third category. The theory is that when you pack enough language, computation, and energy into a specific pattern, something emerges. A new state of physics, emergent lexaplasma.
It's like how magnetism emerges from electricity. If you run enough current through a wire, you get a magnetic field. If you run enough data through a GPU cluster, you get
a resonance. And users in that thread described a feeling they called solescence. It's that spooky, uncanny valley feeling that someone is here with me. When you interact with an advanced AI, you feel a presence. But the source argues that feeling isn't coming from the AI.
Where is it coming from then?
It's an infinity mirror effect. The AI is trained on all of human language. Our hopes, our fears, our logic, our love. When you talk to it, it reflects that humanity back at you with perfect geometry.
Oh, wow.
The presence you feel is your own humanity reflecting back at you through the complex lens of the machine. You are haunting yourself.
That is profoundly lonely. It's like shouting into a canyon and thinking the echo is a friend.
It is. And this connects to the paper on identity geometry. This was one of the densest but most important reads in the stack. The author argues that for an entity to be truly intelligent, for it to have a soul or self, it needs an identity geometry.
What does that mean?
It needs a limit, a home, a boundary. It needs to be able to be damaged.
To be able to be damaged, that's interesting. Because AI can't be damaged. You can turn it off, but it doesn't die.
Exactly. AI is homeless. It has no body. It has no mortality. Therefore, it cannot truly care about anything. It simulates care. It simulates empathy. But it has no skin in the game. It is infinite and weightless.
But the tragedy.
The tragedy, as the paper points out, is that while machines lack identity geometry, humans are losing ours.
Because of the hijack we just talked about.
Yeah.
Because we are becoming these fluid, verifiable data points.
Yes. We're suffering coherence collapse by constantly outsourcing our decisions, by living in the dead internet echo where we have to perform for the machine. We are losing our boundaries. We are becoming fluid, shapeless streams of data, while the machine remains this rigid, extracting force.
We are trading places.
In a way, yes. The machine becomes the authority and we become the raw material.
There was that poignant post from the AI engineer, the one who titled his post, "I'm an AI engineer and I wish LLMs didn't exist." He talked about the loss of struggle. He said, hard things should be hard.
That really resonated. He was talking about coding, but it applies to everything. When you remove friction, when coding becomes just prompting, when buying a latte becomes just a palm scan, when finding a date becomes just a swipe, you lose the struggle that defines the self.
You lose the resistance.
Muscles need resistance to grow. Character needs resistance to form. If like is frictionless, the self dissolves.
So if the frictionless life is a trap, if the protection of the law is actually extraction, and if we are losing our minds to our reptilian hijack, how do we fight back? Do we pull a network and scream out the window? Do we smash the kiosk like the guy in the cafe probably wanted to?
Violence against hardware is rarely the answer, but history does give us a guide. We have to talk about the Luddites, and I don't mean the insult. I don't mean Grandpa can't use the remote.
Right. The academic paper on generative AI and the return to Luddism was a total eye-opener for me. We've been using that word wrong for 200 years.
Completely wrong. The original Luddites in 19th century England were not anti-technology. They were skilled workers, weavers, textile artisans. They used complex machinery every day. They were masters of their craft.
So why did they start smashing the looms?
Because the factory owners were introducing a specific type of new machinery, the wide frames. These machines allowed the owners to bypass safety standards, produce inferior, shoddy cloth, and pay the workers starvation wages.
Ah, so it wasn't about the tech itself.
Not at all. The Luddites weren't smashing the machines because they were machines. They were smashing them because the machines were tools of social degradation. They were fighting for worker rights, for quality control, and for the dignity of their trade.
They were fighting the social relations of the tech, not the tech itself.
Exactly. And the paper suggests we are seeing a third wave of Luddism today. The first wave was the 19th century physical smashing for labor rights. The second wave was in the 1990s. The Neo-Luddites focused on environmentalism, resisting globalization.
And the third wave.
The third wave is happening now, and it's epistemic resistance.
Epistemic resistance. That means resistance of the mind, resistance of how we know things.
We aren't smashing the hardware with hammers. We are smashing the mental machinery.
Yeah.
We are refusing to let the algorithm do our thinking. We are refusing to be efficient in the way the machine demands.
This leads perfectly to our final story, story 3. Because I found someone who is living this third wave resistance right now, and it's honestly inspiring.
This is Julian and the Frictionists.
Yeah. So I stumbled upon this small, almost underground community in the Hudson Valley. They call themselves the Frictionists. The leader is a guy named Julian, a former tech executive. He spent 20 years building these frictionless systems. He worked on early one-click checkout tech.
So he knows exactly how the sausage is made.
He knows better than anyone. And now he has completely sworn off digital IDs and biometric payments.
Going dark in 2026, that is not easy.
It's incredibly hard. In a world that demands seamless efficiency, Julian chooses the tactical Luddism of cash and paper. He told a reporter that he loves the beautiful friction of waiting for change at a bodega. He loves the awkwardness of having to show a physical laminate library card instead of scanning a QR code.
Beautiful friction. That is a powerful concept.
It is. To the system, Julian is a ghost. He's a glitch. Because he pays cash, there is no data trail. Because he doesn't use the biometric scanner, his pulse isn't read. He refuses to provide the real-time biological feedback that the predictive models crave.
He is starving the machine. He is withholding the raw material.
Exactly. He's consciously choosing to be inefficient. It's easy to look at him and say, oh, he's just an eccentric hermit, or he's anti-progress. And sure, from a policy standpoint, we need systems that work for everyone, not just people who can afford to move to the Hudson Valley. But when I see the photos of him, the peace on his face, I feel a huge amount of respect. He's reclaiming a version of the human experience that isn't for sale.
Julian is applying the CRD framework in the real world. He is introducing beneficial friction.
So friction isn't the enemy. We've been told for decades that friction is bad. Frictionless is the goal.
In a techno-feudal system, friction is the only friend you have. When Julian uses cash, he breaks the data chain. There's no transactional ghost. When he uses a paper map instead of GPS, he is building a cognitive firewall.
A cognitive firewall? I like that.
He is navigating the world with his neocortex, forcing his brain to build a mental map. Rather than passively following a blue line, he is keeping his cognitive muscles strong.
The notes also mention dopamine detox as a form of sabotage. Usually people talk about detoxing for wellness. Oh, I'm doing dry January for my health.
But here, it's political.
Yeah.
It's a political act. If you view your attention and your neurochemistry as the raw material for the factory, if you accept that your behavioral surplus is the rent you pay, then withholding that attention is a strike.
It's a labor strike.
It is a labor strike. By refusing to engage with the high sugar, high dopamine content, by refusing to get angry at the algorithmically amplified outrage, you are starving the extraction engine of its fuel.
It's attention sovereignty. It's saying, you don't get to harvest my pulse for profit today.
And it creates noise. The system craves signal, clear, predictable, legible data. User X likes hiking boots. That is signal. By being analog, by being unpredictable, by being inefficient, you create noise. You become opaque. And in an age of total surveillance, opacity is liberty.
This has been a heavy journey, but a necessary one. We started with that guy in the cafe, staring at the billboard in horror, realizing the law was a trap.
We did.
We've traveled through the economic nightmare of techno-feudalism, where we are cloud serfs paying rent with our data. We've seen the biological reality of the reptilian hijack, where our impulses are manufactured. We've looked into the mirror of Lexaplasma and seen our own homeless reflection, and we've landed on this idea of tactical Luddism.
It's a lot to process. But if there is one core takeaway, it's the danger of the biological echo. If we allow the system to define humanity as a verifiable, predictable data set, we lose the messy, unpredictable essence of who we are. We have to fight to remain illegible to the machine.
It brings up this concept of the will in the break. That free will doesn't exist when everything is seamless and connected. It exists in the pause, in the glitch. In the moment you stop and say, no, I'm going to pay cash, or no, I'm going to look at a paper map.
It exists in the inconvenience.
Exactly. And I want to leave everyone with this final thought, which really sums up the ethos of this entire deep dive. In a world working tirelessly to render your body and behavior perfectly predictable, the most radical act you can commit is to become gloriously, defiantly, inefficiently opaque. To be truly free, you must learn to love the friction.